on a daily or weekly basis, somebody who's not taking that seriously, then they're always trying to get to the apex, but they don't quite understand, why aren't I getting all the way there? Well, are you fueling your body properly, right? Are you giving it the rest, the downtime that it needs? Are you giving it the exercise that it needs? Are you giving it the fuel that it needs? Are you filling yourself with your relationships, Are you doing all these things that you need in order to be the best version of yourself possible?
This is the Untamed Podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your untamed hosts, Mark Lucas and Joel Fritz.
All right, few, we're going to toss out an idea. We think it's an important idea, so we're going to throw it out there and have a little discussion on it. Hopefully, it's a blessing to you and actually maybe makes you think about something. That'd be cool. How do we recover, Mark? We spend a lot of energy. We expend a ton of resources in order to try and accomplish certain things in our lives, whether they be relationship areas or career areas. Maybe even we overspend in a physical area, but we need to recover. So how do we recover? I think that's a relevant topic for our guys, relevant topic for you and I. So I hope we can have a really good discussion on that right now.
I love it. I think it's very relevant for sure. In the midst of feeling so drained this week, I'm like, all right, I got to really lean into Joel right now and lean into the words that I might speak. You know what? I think most guys we know, they're running hard. Mm-hmm. They're running hard. Physically, they're running hard. In their career, they're running hard. In their relationships, they're running hard. They're just running hard. And yet, what does the refueling process look like? How do they replenish themselves? Like, what does that really look like? And for me, it's been a lot of different things. But I think the first question is identifying, if we look at the kind of fuel gauge of our lives, where are we right now? And where is the tank right now? And I think that's not a hard question, but that is obviously one of the maybe more important first questions we ask. Mm-hmm. And like right now, when I say, which I am, I'm feeling low, like I'm running on empty. Then there's certain things that obviously have been in my control, certain things that have not been in my control this week, but there's just been a lot in the volume that most people, yourself included, that most people have on their plate, even just this week when they listen to this and watch this. So there's some things that I can control, but in that process, I've got to ask myself, okay, what does sleep look like at night? What does nutrition look like at night? If I feel like I'm so time impoverished that I can't work out, that's probably a farce. Mm-hmm. There's going to be, even if it's getting up, which I did earlier in the week, to be able to just know I got to get up at about 5:15 to be able to crank out outside some cardio. Talked to a guy yesterday, is like, every time I have, and this is the same guy that has been having some anxious thoughts, he said, every time I feel anxious, I drop down and do push-ups. So there's ways, obviously, there's ways for us to navigate even the physical. In the most demanding 16 plus 17-hour days, you can still creep it in. It might be in a smaller chunk or a few smaller chunks, but you can still creep it in. What does that morning time look like for me? Even if I only have just a sliver of time, how am I reflecting? How am I reading? How am I journaling in my gratitude journal? How am I praying for others? If that's low and anemic, I've got to address that. How are my relationships? Even in the midst of a really, really busy week, can I carve out, which I can, some intentional little moments, even if they're just small, to be intentional relationally? Mm-hmm. And I think what happens for me when I feel low and depleted to the point of feeling like I'm running out of gas, and that's when there's a massive danger zone that I'm in, I've missed the mark in those areas. I've missed the mark physically that week. I've missed the mark to be self-reflective and read and journal and cultivate gratitude in the morning that week. I've missed any moment to really connect, even for a small moment, relationally with people in that week. And yet I've got so much done. and I've checked so many to-do box tasks, and I've accomplished and moved the ball forward in so many ways. However, none of that really matters that much long-term if I'm depleting all the other areas, because there's only a certain amount of time. I remember a guy that I knew very well, and I was coaching at one time back in Arizona. He ran every day, 16, 17-hour days, every day. He did work out. He did have a journal quiet time. But because he was pushing his body, and the stress of his body literally shut down, and he collapsed twice in his kitchen. So I think we've got to know, number one, we're not Superman. Okay. Number two, there has to be moments where we recharge and find energy in the 5 spheres, really looking at how do we recharge in those 5 spheres. And when we do those things, for the most part, we can run that hamster wheel to death. We can probably run that hamster wheel until we go and we take a last breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate you sharing all that. And I'm thinking, as you were talking, this is what was coming up in my mind. So I might have to ask you another question here or two
Do
here.
it.
But this is what was coming up in my mind. There are good reasons for us to run hard for seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we need to take advantage of those.
Yeah.
I'm aware you are actually in one of those seasons. It's not a long one, but a short one. You started a new position as a director, recently, and you're still like, we have to record the podcast. And so you're having to make some extra time right now, and you're tired at the end of the week. So I think one of the big things is are we always supposed to feel recharged? Or are we supposed to expend a lot of energy and then recover? That's something that was in my mind, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, about that, because you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah. I think it's both in. I think there's seasons where I'm going to spend a lot of energy and then recover, and I've got to create some type of a word that's maybe not familiar, but a word that is somewhat familiar, a Sabbath. Mm-hmm. I've got to create some moment of rest, and the day doesn't have to be Sunday, but I've got to create even a microcosm of a moment that's more than just an hour, a half day or a day, to be able to really rest.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And then there's seasons where that's how I run to the point of expending myself, but know that Sabbath or day of recharge rest, it's there and it's coming. It's Sunday, let's say. Then there's other moments where know that I might not even get, like this week, for the most part, there's not really a day of rest and recovery. So now how do I continue to run into Monday and the following week, knowing that there's a pocket of some time on the day, but there's a whole list of things that have piled up that didn't get done this week that need to get done on Sunday.
Right.
So there will be a little chunk of rest, but it won't probably be ample enough to fully recharge myself in all those areas, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So then those weeks, and if there's multiple compounded weeks like that, then I've got to figure out, okay, even if it's just small little recharging chunks at the end of each day and the beginning of each morning, I've got to insert those habits to do those things to be able to make sure that I'm still charging enough so I'm not burning out.
Mm-hmm.
Charging enough so I'm not hurting relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Charging enough so I'm not sabotaging myself and my health.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I agree. And I think that one of the things we all recognize is that we have to work hard in life. Yeah. Like, things aren't just going to come easy to us in life, so we're going to have to work hard. It's not about whether or not we will have to do that. It's about how we're going to do it and then recover, that we can experience longevity, that we can go further, right? That we can have the best that we can have in our present situation. And so it's really important that we build recovery in. There's so many different facets to recovery too. You've mentioned physical a few times, and that definitely makes me think, especially the exercise component. I think Exercise is interesting because it gives us so many examples of what we should be paying attention to in life. But when I think of exercise and the physical exertion, I do a lot of cycling, and it's fascinating. You can go and you can leave a whole lot out on a ride and work really hard, and you literally need recovery. You're not going to be able to do the same thing that you were able to do that day, the next day, and so you have to recover. Simultaneously, if you rest and rest and rest, you're never going to get faster and be able to go longer.
Right.
And so there's this interesting balance that exercise shows us in that facet. And you keep talking about exercise in the midst of all the stuff that we have to do. But part of the reason that we need to exercise is that we want to be able to do those things, and we want to be able to push hard in our careers and relationship and everything, but then our bodies don't support what we need.
Right.
And so it's interesting that I see a lot of people who build a very consistent habit of exercise. Maybe it's early in the morning, whatever it is, but they do it on a routine basis, and they get that time every single week, oftentimes every single day, and it actually supports them because that is a form of recovery. So physical exertion, when we're talking about, can be a form of recovery, especially when it is part of the larger context, when you are out and you're exerting yourself mentally, you're exerting yourself with a level of stress, that exercise can really help. And I think we all kind of know this, been lots of conversations about it, but it becomes critical as a part of sustaining what's going on in our lives to be able to have build in these routines that take care of that actually, so we have to build in that recovery into our days in order that we can do and make the hard pushes that we're going to make. And we have to have downtime. Like, we can't just go and not have any downtime. And you mentioned Sabbath, and I think Sabbath is such an important concept. It's a concept given to us by God, but it's not sidestepping work, but it is saying that rest is important. So you work, and then you make sure that you take time every single week for the things that are so important. And Sabbath is very much so a spiritual practice, a relational practice, a physical rest practice. Because there's even some fasting involved in many ways with that as well. So it's very interesting, but these routines, and I heard you say routine a whole lot in there, and I just had to kind of pick that apart because I think that's a lot of what I hear you saying.
Well, the one thing as well, let's go back to the Sabbath. I just thought of this when you shared this. You can probably speak deeper to this, but in what I know in Hebrew, I will let the audience know that it's important to know that the Hebrew week began on Saturday, and the Sabbath was a Saturday day, originally in the context of this passage that we're looking at here, okay? So here's why that's important. That's important because God himself has mandated the Sabbath. It's a mandate or a command he gives us to honor it, okay? And what that's saying in the sequence of time, Saturday being the first day of the week and that being the day of the Sabbath, here's what that's saying. And here's what we don't do. Here's what I don't do. What God is saying is you work from a place of rest, not the opposite. The normal Western mindset is you rest from a place of exhaustion and work.
Mm-hmm.
And just think to ourselves, what would my life, what would your life look like if we truly worked from a place of rest?
Mm-hmm.
If we truly began the week and made sure that we truly, at the start of that week, the first and most sacred day was a day of rest. And when you look at a day of rest, it's a day of connection with people that you love relationally. It's a day free from minimal distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a day of beautiful emotional connection and recharging. What would our work week look like? What would our relationships look like if we worked from a place of rest? And I've thought about that at different moments in my life, but even right now in this moment, I'm like, how backwards most weeks do I get that? I come in just clawing for the finish line, just barely hanging on with enough emotional and physical and fortitude to make it across the finish line to just barely be able to rest the next day, the final day of the week. And it's just a really good kind of rhythm reset, when we begin to kind of process practically, what would that look like to begin the week from a great place of being fully recharged and all those 5 spheres fully recharged to really get after the week the way that the Lord would want us to get after the week.
Yeah, I think it's a routine that'd be a really good thing for us.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, even you lived in a place in the world that had a Sabbath throughout the day, even in the workday.
They did.
So what did that do in the culture? Again, you were there in COVID, so that changed a lot of it. But how did that impact relationships? How did that impact productivity? How did that impact happiness? How did that impact the ethos of that culture?
It's a great question. I think the answer is actually, so I lived in Italy for 15 months. And during my time there, it was very shocking that the country, but especially the locale we were in, would shut down from 1 to 1:30, right in there somewhere, until 5 to 5:30. So it's 4 hours. It wasn't like a nap. It was a full shutdown.
Yeah.
And it was very shocking that you could actually drive through the entire city and there's nobody out.
Right.
The cyclists, so this was kind of interesting though. I mean, in that rest period, the cyclists would go out. That's when we go bike riding. We go from 2:30 to 4:30, and then everything would fire back up. So it gave a nice window of time to do different exercising and things like that. That was kind of cool. But, the impact that it had on the culture, I think the culture did it because of what the culture is and the things that the culture prioritizes. And I would suggest to you, and I guess let me illuminate that a little bit. The culture prioritizes relationship. The culture prioritizes food. In Italy, we were just joking. We had some Italians come and visit us recently. And we were talking about how the entire time we were in Italy, we never saw anybody walking and eating food, like a burger or a burrito or anything like that, right? Well, they don't even really have burritos in Italy, believe it or not.
But not in their car, they're not eating.
They're not eating anywhere. Where are they eating? Italians are sat with people when they're eating, because Italians, they value relationship. That's a high priority to them.
Beautiful.
And it is. It's very cool. But now flip that over to the conversation that we're having right now. That is a reflection of the culture. I don't know how much I can say that was productive or helped them recover or whatever it was. In fact, I would say to some degree that 4 hours, you kind of sit back and reflect on it and you're like, that's really interesting. Because they also stayed up late at night and they ate food right before they went to bed. Some very unhealthy things, right? They wouldn't eat dinner until oftentimes 9:30 at night. Was a very common hour. That's when the restaurants would really be full. But I just remember I got heartburn, like I can't eat. I mean, think about this stuff. You eat like pizza, wine, you pasta. You think, and then you're having that, and then they're shoving a glass of limoncello at you on the way out the door.
Tiramisu.
And you're like, oh, it's midnight. Now I got to go lay immediately down and go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's just a recipe for not sleeping. Literally, like if you look at the physiology, you have to digest before you're actually going to get the good sleep. So when you ask about that, I'm glad. It's fun for me to talk about, but I don't know how much that is reflected in the ability for the culture to operate out of the rest, so much as the culture actually prioritizes something like that because of the cultural values. So do I see some rest? Yeah, Sunday's really cool because you do see it there. They do start their week with a strengthened relationship. Now, Sunday was also the party day. So nobody was working on Sunday, so that was really great. It was highly relational. That's really great. It had great food, especially in the middle of the day, because you would eat lunch from pretty much 1 o'clock till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was incredible. So lunch was an amazing time. And then there was all the relationship in there. However, Sunday night was also the most busy of the entire time. There was a marina not far from us, and there was people all over the place. So it was weird that they start from a place of strength, like you're saying, in relationship. That's what they prioritize. But they were very tired on Monday mornings when they actually went into work, because it was also the big, everybody's up seeing each other, and they'd stay up late on Sunday nights. It was a big day. So a lot of fun in that culture, but yeah, it's a great question because they do prioritize that rest in the middle of the day, but they prioritize it for food, they prioritize it for people, and they do take a nap, but then they stay up late. So they kind of take that energy and they actually burn it up at the end of the day in that particular culture.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a nice cultural analysis. I'm
It was
glad
beautiful.
you asked it.
Thanks for sharing all that. I hope it brought back some happy
It
memories.
brought back great memories. I'm hungry.
I love it. Yeah, me too. I think one of the things that I think about visually is this pendulum. And you think about as a pendulum swings, you think about the momentum that it drives forward after the further it gets back, obviously, the further it comes forward. And when you think about rest and recovery, what we don't think about often enough probably is that rest and recovery really brings us back to the apex and the highest point that we need to come back to start that next day and to have that strength and momentum that we need to get through the day. And yet a lot of us only come back a fraction of the way and then are still pushing, trying to get to that apex at the end of the day, 16-hour day, whatever it is up here. And yet that's just going to lead to burnout. That's going to lead to exhaustion. That's going to hurt relationships. So we need to process, what does that full swing back, full rest and recovery look like in all those areas? Like mentally, how do I rest? How do I charge myself intellectually?
Yeah.
What does it look like for me to charge myself and bring that pendulum back emotionally? What does that look like? Relationally, what does that look like? Spiritually, physically. And as you do those 5 things and you really feel like you've got that compounded, beautiful, swinging energy to come forward in the next day, that next day you crush. Even if you hit a massive negative reality or multiple, you crush it the next day. And I think that's kind of where I've even been this week, is like mine's been like a half swing and then all the way up. And then I'm really grinding it out, trying to get a little bit more than a half swing, but not really, and then grinding it out. Yeah. And now here I am Friday, which is when we record this, and I'm like dreading the fact that I have to go run around a pickleball court for an hour plus tonight and win a championship with my doubles partner,
You're
Steve.
going to win that championship.
I'm going to win the championship, but I'm not at a physical place right now, even just mentally and emotionally. I'm pretty running on empty.
Yeah.
In the way of the fuel tank. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think this is too big of a turn away from where we're at, but I'm feeling the importance of talking about food real quick before we wrap up, because I'm thinking food is really, really important in all of this. And I think people underestimate. So I think people underestimate just the role that food plays in the recovery process. And I'm also thinking, I don't know if we started talking about Italy or what it was, Mark, but I started thinking about, all the good food that I had, and even that feeling, certain places in Italy just have such an amazing vibe to them. And you get into that vibe and you go, I don't know what it is. You want to pig out. We go on vacation and you want to pig out, or you finally get done with the end of the week and you're not thinking about recovery. You're thinking about, I made it. Just like you said, I clawed my way to the top of the mountain and now here I am. And you kind of throw yourself off the other side and you eat and you're terrible, whether it's alcohol or whether it's just really bad food and then you don't get sleep that night, whatever it is. Food really plays into our recovery process. And you and I had a conversation earlier, I'm being recalled to, and I did a bike race over the weekend, and it was a grueling bike race. It wasn't super long, but the time that I exerted hard. It was 2 hours, a mountain bike race. It was supposed to be 20 miles, and it's an intimidating course because there's just so much rock, and it's really bumpy. So it's an exhausting, like a full body exhausting thing. And then it rained for 6 hours that morning. And it was just absolutely so muddy that you couldn't even, it was nasty. My wheel stopped turning at one point. My back wheel, there was so much mud, the wheel locked up. And I had to get off the bike and unpack, like it was that bad, sticks and leaves, the whole deal. So it just gives you a portrait of what it was like. Well, I did that race. Now I do that race. That's actually a bit of a recovery for me, an intense, emotional exertion like that, physical exertion. That is part of my routine. I need to do those things. It makes me a better person, but you physically have to recover after that. Well, I didn't eat well. I think the next day, I took my daughter Lily down to a race in Birmingham. A motorsport race is pretty cool. She had a great time. We had an awesome time, but I had a chili dog. And then we went to Outback later on that night. And I have to say, I was in that recovery mode. My body was just like, from the day before, it needed good food, and I gave it bad food.
Yeah.
And then I paid Monday and Tuesday.
Paid the piper.
Yeah. And so I had intestinal pain. I just, it just wasn't good.
Mhm.
Now, when I reflect upon it, I can see, what did I do wrong? Well, duh. Like, look,
You had a chili dog.
yeah, I had the chili dog.
And Outback.
It was. And then I went to Outback, and it's like, I don't know, but man, we got to think about that, guys. It's like, if we want
Fuel.
to be able to sustain what we're trying to sustain, it is the fuel.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about that swing, that's the image that was coming into my mind, is your swing can only go as far as you set it up to go. And you kind of said that, and like, we want this rhythm where we rest good enough that it propels us forward like that.
Mhm.
Well, food is a part of that propulsion. If you don't give your body the fuel that it's going to need, it just won't make it. And I really think we sell ourselves short on that. We just have that indulgence that we want, or we want that certain taste, or we're used to eating a certain thing, and we refuse to change that habit, even though we're still asking our bodies to make that swing. And if we change that habit, or we paid attention, my recovery would have gone a lot better in my own personal example. But on a daily or weekly basis, somebody who's not taking that seriously, then they're always trying to get to the apex, but they don't quite understand, why aren't I getting all the way there? Well, are you fueling your body properly, right? Are you giving it the rest, the downtime that it needs? Are you giving it the exercise that it needs? Are you giving it the fuel that it needs? Are you filling yourself with your relationships? Are you doing all these things that you need in order to be the best version of yourself possible?
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I mean, even as a family, and you've helped with this, Joel, quite a bit, we've just really looked at food in our pantry. We've looked at what's processed, what's not processed. What are we eating? How clean is it? Is it coming from the earth? Is it packaged? And just doing a real hard inventory and really looking into our pantry, looking into what the kids eat, what we eat, what we're fueling with. And it's a game changer. I mean, it changes. We used to joke in the gym when I worked in the gym back in Arizona, every guy and girl, but mainly every guy, wanted big guns, big pecs.
Yeah.
Okay. But they also wanted a six pack. And we would just tell all these guys, listen, six packs are made in the kitchen. I mean, we can give you the greatest ab workout you've ever seen every time you're here, but six packs are made in the kitchen. So at the end of the day, I mean, that's the fuel. That's truly the fuel that's going to get you to that apex and get you to that point that's up here. You've got to process all those areas, but you've got to process what you're feeding and fueling and nourishing your body, or not nourishing your body with.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Well, we hope you guys crush it this coming week and work, and not just in work, but in life, that your relationships are everything that they could be, that the purpose that you've been created for is everything, and maximize that it could be this week. We hope you operate in your calling. All these things that really get Mark and I up in the morning and make us passionate. So we hope you figure those things out, but we hope you fuel for it as well. We hope you recover for it in order that you can experience those things. So it's been a good time, Mark.
Thanks, Untamed.
Thank you, guys.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.